So you have a trip coming up, and you're worried about falling off track with your training and nutrition routines while you travel. If that's the case, you are in the right place. Today we're going to be setting you up for success by giving you 5 consistency tips to help you stay healthy and fit while you travel. My name is Brian Pickowitz.
And I'm Lindsay Pickowitz.
And we are the head coach of the Fitness Project, where we focus on building fit and healthy leaders. And so we know that a lot of our clients struggle with nutrition and training while they're traveling. They struggle to stay consistent. They struggle to nourish their body. And that doesn't just impact their ability to feel healthy or be focused on their trips or feel more relaxed. It also impacts their ability to make progress. And ultimately, if you're not making progress, there's this feeling that sets in that says, I'm so frustrated, I might as well quit. That's not what we want from you. We want you to be successful, we want you to feel great, and we want you to get all the rewards of being healthy, regardless of whether you're traveling, you're on vacation, or whatever comes up. And so that's why we are putting this podcast together to really support you in this season.
Absolutely. And yeah, we know a thing or two about travel as well. We actually just got back from Louisville, Kentucky, practicing saying Louisville. And we had great experiences with fitness and nutrition that prompted us to say, let's put a podcast together. Let's really teach people just the top 5 ways to stay consistent so you can keep your momentum. You can at least not lose your progress, if not make progress while you travel.
Even between that, I mean, you and I have traveled so much over the last decade. I mean, you lived in Australia for a while. That was a travel trip for both of us. We moved from New Hampshire to Los Angeles to Dallas. We were constantly flying for masterminds or business events or business retreats. And then never mind vacations with family, going to Jamaica, going to Florida, all these different things. And each time we did, we still stayed active. We still stayed healthy. And I think that is something that not only have we learned for ourselves, we've been able to convert to a lot of our clients as well. Because for a lot of them, they're traveling for business meetings, they're traveling for events, they're going to see family, they're going on vacation, especially now with the holidays coming up, it's very similar. So being able to learn these skills for ourselves and being able to give them to our clients, we can give them to you as well. And that can be really helpful as you're going into this season.
That said, as you listen to this, we are going to give you the top 5 tips to stay consistent while you travel. And as you're listening to this, think ahead to the trip coming up, whether it is for the holidays like a month from now, or if you're kind of that last second planner and you're leaving today or tomorrow and you're just trying to get yourself organized. This should be really, really helpful. Tip number 1, if you are going to be traveling soon and you want to stay consistent, you want to continue to get results while you are gone, is to build your plan ahead of time. The biggest thing here is you've got to commit to consistency before you leave. A client of mine comes to mind. She is traveling for business, and she's actually a facilitator for the next 3 to 4 days in an event all day, every day. That said, her question for me was, Lindsay, what's the simplest possible plan that I can uphold this week? Naturally, I inquired a little bit further to ask her what she meant by this, what my answer should be, dependent on what she was trying to accomplish this week. And she basically came back with, just give me guidance on what I can do to take care of myself every day so I don't have to think about it. And I think that's kind of ideal. We all want to get to the point where we do naturally fall into fitness and health habits. But if you're still kind of at the beginning stages of your fitness and health journey, you're really striving to make it a priority, but it hasn't been for a long time, then you are going to have to put a little bit more intention into it. So for this particular client, what we focused on was first looking at where she was staying and what was available. And then essentially I just kind of scaled down what she had been doing for the last 3 to 4 months and said, all we're going to focus on are moving your body every day. So a simple workout plan that utilizes your hotel gym. And I'm not even going to have you track your food. Just focus on eating protein this week at every meal. Focus on eating protein. So we're going to break down maybe a few more tips within what I gave to this particular client. But the biggest thing is the day before the trip, she said, what's my plan? It wasn't, oh, I'm here and it's been 2 days and I haven't done anything, so I should probably do something. Oh, but I don't want to do anything. If you get into that more reactive place, it's going to be really hard to make progress or sustain your progress while you travel.
And you have to see it as something you're committed to. If you want to be consistent while you're traveling, it has to be something you're mentally and emotionally committed to. And I think it's helpful to see it as a part of who you are at this point. Now, obviously, you reinforce who you are through your actions. James Clear talks about our identity being reinforced as our habits are formed, right? We start to take action in a certain way and we become that version of ourselves. So if you're not someone who's healthy right now, remember that by showing up while you're traveling is reinforcing the fact that you are a healthy person. You've become that version of yourself. For Lindsay and I, it's a non-negotiable. Doesn't mean that we're obsessed and we're tracking everything, but when I travel, I'm going to go and move my body every day. I'm going to make sure that I hydrate. I'm going to make sure that I don't wake up and have a complimentary breakfast full of donuts and bagels and pastries because I would never do that in my normal life. Mm-hmm. I want to wake up and be successful. And so if you want to wake up and be successful, you're on a business trip. Wake up and set your routine the right way. Set your state. Do something that gets you active. Remind yourself of your goal by your actions, right? And I think it's a simple thing to just come back to and understanding, like Lindsay was saying, you're not going to wing it and get healthy.
Right.
You have to plan ahead. You have to execute and know that, hey, every time I practice this behavior, it's becoming more of who I'm supposed to be or who I want to be.
Yeah. And in the remaining 4 tips, we're going to give you ways that you can, we'll say, build your plan for your travel. But truly, the biggest thing to start with is just committing to being consistent before you leave and asking yourself a few questions like, well, like my client did, what's the simplest and easiest way that I can be consistent on this trip? And what should I be focusing on? And how can I set myself up for success? If you're already thinking that way before you travel, your likelihood of follow through is going to be much, much higher than the person who gets into their trip and is like, I should probably do something, right? They're probably not going to follow through.
Tip number 2 is set up your stay for success. And also make sure that you can have some fail-safe items in case you can't train. So when we talk about setting up your stay for success, whenever you're traveling, investigate the hotel. Does it have a gym? Is there a fridge? Is there a kitchen? Or even your Airbnb. Is it in an area where you can run? Is it right next to the beach? Maybe there's a kitchen in the Airbnb that you can utilize. Look at where you're going ahead of time, and that way you can properly plan. I know for myself, one of the greatest rewards I've ever seen is a picture from a client who was running right next to the Colosseum in Rome. He had taken this trip from the United States to Europe. It was this wonderful trip for him and his family, and he didn't have a gym. But he knew, hey, I'm going to pack some workout clothes, I'm going to pack my shoes, and I want to go for a run right next to the Colosseum. He sent me this selfie, and I was like, that is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. How amazing. Mm-hmm. So again, he was planning ahead. And you want to think the same way for your stay whenever you're at a hotel. Investigate, is there a fridge? Is there some way that you could order groceries from Instacart when you arrive so you have some of your regular staple foods? Lindsay and I will often order deli meat or apples or even bagged lettuce or things that we would usually have around the house that we can keep in the refrigerators in our hotel. It makes it really simple and easy, and we've already planned ahead. Now, the fail-safe items might be things that we keep on hand just in case we can't order from Instacart or we can't go to the grocery store or we can't work out at the gym. That might be my shoes. That might be my workout clothing. It might be some nuts. It might be a protein bar. It might be some protein powder. Things that I want to have as a fail-safe in case there isn't really an opportunity to eat healthy or to move my body in the way that I want.
Yeah, one time we went to a hotel, I think it was 2021, maybe 2022. It was quite a bit after COVID. I totally expected to get to work out each morning to set my state before we dove into the day, whatever this trip was. And the gym was closed, quote unquote, due to COVID, but it had been years after. So I was totally not expecting the gym to be closed. And in that circumstance, yes, I could go for a run, but it also would have been nice if I had remembered to bring bands on that trip or something that I could have utilized in the hotel room if I did want to get a quick workout in. So again, fail safe. It's for things that maybe you don't expect. Maybe the gym is closed or there's something going on or you don't have access to the breakfast you thought you did or you're not close to a grocery store. Bring protein bars, bring protein powder, bring snacks that maybe don't need to be refrigerated, and then maybe bring workout clothes, shoes, and bands. Things that you can fall back on if your plan kind of goes awry.
Mm-hmm.
That said, as we go into tip number 3, it's important to remember if you are an ambitious person who has a goal that's really compelling that you deeply desire, you're not going to fall off because you all of a sudden don't care about the goal anymore. Most likely you're going to fall off because you got distracted and you didn't realize in the moment how easy it could be to get back on track. Mm-hmm. Tip number 3 is going to allow you every opportunity to get back on track. Tip number 3 is reset every day while you travel. Think about it this way. Every time when you wake up, you have a fresh opportunity for a new day. Yes? We all do. But when we think about our fitness and health journey, we don't tend to think about it every day, especially, again, if it hasn't been a part of your routine for a long time and you're working it back in. Well, the morning is the best time for you to mentally recommit to what you're working on for yourself. And so what we have a lot of our clients do is build what we call a keystone habit, which is essentially the one habit in your day that positively influences the rest of your decisions throughout the day. One of those keystone habits tends to be identifying what your goals are for today. What are those 2 to 3 things that you really want to be able to do or accomplish that will make the day a win? And if it is important to you to be consistent and continue to make progress while you travel, then if you were to write down, hey, most important things for me today are get at least 20 minutes of movement in, eat a healthy breakfast, and make sure I have some protein at lunch. Well, then you're much more likely to follow through than the person who totally does not even think about it, goes out, drinks a little bit too much because they're at a client meeting or they're going out with friends, wakes up with a little bit of a hangover, and then just kind of rolls through the day, only to feel guilty and kind of give up and say, you know what, I'll just reset when I get back. One little decision can make a huge difference over the course of your trip and allow you to kind of jump right back in when you get home. So reset every day.
And as easy as it is to know, or so, let me say this differently, as easy as it is to fall in the trap of saying, oh my gosh, I'm not going to lose weight, so what's the point? Understand that the behaviors are what get us to the goal. So if you have had a bad day, it's easy to say, hey, you know what? I'm not going to reach my weight loss goal. I'll just restart eventually. Or, I guess I might as well keep doing the things I'm doing because it doesn't really matter. Catch yourself in that state. Because the sooner you get on track, the sooner you're going to feel better, the sooner things are going to change for you. If you allow that story to perpetuate itself, you're going to end up back where you started, which is probably coming off of one of those cycles where you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I let myself go. So as soon as you start saying to yourself, stop it.
Yep.
We don't do that anymore. Tip number 4, focus on protein-rich meals versus snacking. So there's going to be this desire to eat snacks because they're more readily available. You'll see them at the business, or the coffee shop, the conference. There's always little things, but they're never really fulfilling or nourishing, right? They just leave you a little bit, they like satisfy you for the moment, but you're like, oh my gosh, 30 minutes from now, an hour from now, I'm really hungry. And so what happens for a lot of people when they travel is they don't really eat a nourishing breakfast. They don't eat a nourishing lunch. They snack all day. And then when it's time for dinner, they're ravenous and they overeat, they overconsume because they didn't eat meals throughout the day. The best thing you can do while you're traveling is eat protein-rich meals. Meals that are full of protein because it's usually something you're not eating when you are having snacks. And also making sure you're eating healthy whole foods. Getting some greens in there, getting some veggies, getting some fruits, getting some fiber, right? Getting foods that make you feel full. It's so important. So for example, while we were traveling this last week, there was a complimentary breakfast. I love staying at hotels that have complimentary breakfasts because I can plan ahead and I can get the food that I need. So we go downstairs. It's like 9 o'clock. I personally do not like to eat breakfast in the morning, so I fast. But I saw that they had some healthy options that I could plan for later. So I grabbed some hard-boiled eggs. I grabbed some walnuts. I grabbed a little Canadian bacon. And then I grabbed some apples and bananas, like things I wanted to have readily available. And I stored them for an hour to 2 hours in our fridge upstairs. And then when I was ready to eat, I was like, okay, this is fantastic. I have protein here. I have some healthy fats. I have some healthy carbohydrates. My first meal was probably 400 to 500 calories, but it was very similar to what I would have eaten at home. Right? So I kind of planned ahead, but I had this meal that made me feel really full. What were some of the things you did around lunch or the rest of the day, though, Linz, that kind of helped you?
Yeah, my full day of eating while we were traveling at first looked similar, but like I would go to the complimentary breakfast and I got a bowl of oatmeal. I brought protein powder with me, so I'd have that for breakfast. And then at the breakfast, I would grab 3 hard-boiled eggs and like a piece of sausage or Canadian bacon. That would be my lunch. And then I'd save, we'll say, the rest of the day's food for eating out. So I'd plan to have breakfast, lunch from the hotel, and then when we ate out, I'd have ideally a protein-focused dinner with fun snacks outside of that. So I might have like a coffee shop treat, and then I might have a cocktail at night. So those were more of my fun variety options, and kept breakfast and lunch pretty simple.
Well,
Allowed
even
me to
after
stay on
that,
track.
when we went out, Lindsay and I had this wonderful night where we went out at like midnight or 1 a.m., sometime like that. We only had this one restaurant that was open. It was a pub. And I was ravenous because we went to a wedding rehearsal that didn't have food. Right, we missed the dinner. We weren't invited. I don't know which one was the more accurate. But we didn't have food there. So I had planned on eating dinner, and I was like, oh my gosh, I know it's like 1 a.m., but I am so hungry, and I know we only have snacks back at the hotel. So we sat down, and I looked at the list of pub food, and they had lightly breaded chicken tenders, and they had nachos and like pub pretzels and all this snack-esque food. And I was like, oh, you know what? The chicken tenders is probably a better move here. They weren't like deep fried. They were very lightly breaded. And I was like, oh, this is a better option given what I have.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not about making perfect options, but it's focusing on, hey, what's the better option?
Yep.
And how can I make a strategic decision that aligns with my health and feeling better? And then I woke up the next day. I know if we would have had the nachos, it would have probably been like, oh my gosh, all the oils and the seed oils and just the cheese, everything probably would have felt much worse than what we did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That said, tip number 4 is to focus on protein heavy meals, which even that example is a good one because it's still protein focused, still chicken tenders versus nachos, which would have no protein in it or maybe very little from the cheese. So focus on protein heavy meals over snacks. Tip number 5 and final tip, be mindful of extra calories that do not add extra value. I say this, and we formed this very intentionally because a lot of people will say avoid empty calories when you travel. I honestly don't believe too much in empty calories because most likely the food that you choose is serving some type of value to you. You just need to be mindful of, is that value actually worth it in comparison to maybe the goals that I have? And a great example of this is while we were traveling and we were in Kentucky, we went out to that bar that Brian was talking about, and Brian had the chicken tenders. I had, I think, what was it, the drink I got to try? A Bloody Mary.
A Bloody Mary.
I had my first Bloody Mary.
I had a whiskey sour.
And Brian had a whiskey sour. And, you know, we were observing everyone around us because that is what we do, and we're used to working with clients so much that we just tend to look at behavior a little differently than most. And the people around us were drinking and having a great time. But right before we left, the girl next to us grabbed a massive ice cream sundae. It's 1 a.m. And we thought, you know, she's probably not hungry. And even if she is, that's probably not the best choice to satisfy true hunger. So what value is that adding to her? I wonder. A lot of times if we're eating late at night, it's probably because we feel pretty anxious or we feel disconnected or we feel lonely. And so we turn to something sweet and satisfying that can give us a little bit of variety.
Or a little bit of comfort.
Or a little bit of comfort. Now, this is not me psychoanalyzing the girl next to us, but it's a really great example of saying, are the extra calories that you're consuming outside of your normal actually adding value to your experience and adding value to your trip? This takes a little bit of self-awareness Because sometimes, yes, having a fourth drink does add value and it's really fun. And maybe you suffer the next day, but you're like, man, that was totally worth it. It's fine. All good. But other times, you know you're overindulging. You know that you're going over the top. You know you're feeling anxious. You reach for that next drink. So really be mindful while you travel, because you are in a totally different environment. You're around totally different people, of those extra calories that really don't add any extra value to your life, especially while you are chasing a fitness and health goal that is truly important to you.
So these are the 5 tips, right? If you plan ahead while you're traveling, you can be consistent, but it takes intentionality. So make sure you plan and prep ahead. Second is check out the location. Make sure that it's going to meet your needs when it comes to fitness. Make sure it's going to meet your needs when it comes to nutrition. If it doesn't, then have some fail-safes, right? Pack the right clothes. Make sure you have some protein bars or beef jerky or whatever you need. Tip number 3 is reset every day. Don't allow one day to become a bad week. Reset every day in your morning. Start with a keystone habit that gets you some momentum. Tip number 4 is eat protein-rich meals so you can nourish your body, be full longer, and not have to snack. And tip number 5 is be mindful of eating extra calories that do not add extra value. Anything you would add, Lindsay?
Now, just remember that these tips are really for somebody who wants to be healthy long term. If you feel like your plan cannot be applied while you travel, then that plan is probably going to fall off eventually anyway. So it's time to pivot, and it's time to find a more flexible and sustainable approach you can apply while you travel.
So these are the tips. We hope this is helpful. Let us know your biggest takeaway in the comment section below. If you're on YouTube, if you're on Apple Podcasts, screenshot this, post it on your stories, and let us know what your big takeaway was. But thank you for being here. We hope this is helpful. We hope this continues your journey to health along in an easier manner. And above all else, go out and conquer your day.
Cheers.
Cheers.